All academic and professional research begins with a research proposal. It helps those who are supervising you as a faculty supervisor, as an employer, or it also helps funding sources evaluate your plan for its appropriateness, its validity, and this applies to a lot of different things, including applied projects, theses projects, and papers, dissertations, and lots of other significant academic and industry research. And usually the study, whatever it is, it can't begin until the proposal is approved. So it is in the researcher's best interest to do a good job in setting up their study and proposing it through the research proposal paper. Different disciplines structure the research in different ways, and then within those different types of studies, they format their proposals and final reports differently. The way that medical and psychological studies in technology and engineering in our program, they all have these different structures. Because of these differences, I'm going to deviate from the book a bit because it concentrates more on psychological and social issue topics. I'm going to talk about the four types of studies that we use in this program. We're going to start with the 5-chapter research paper, or also called a report. This might be something that you write or use for your applied projects or thesis if you decide to do one of those. The first chapter is chapter 1, the introduction, and this is where you would introduce the readers to your topic and then to the actual research problem that you have come up with, that thing that you want to find out about, or a question that you want to answer. And then once you have that research problem defined, you would come up with research objectives or questions. And those are the ways that you would answer or address your research problem. You would include a small list of limitations, which are simply reasons why you feel that you might have been able to do the study better. For example, maybe you didn't have access to exactly the type of people that you wanted in your population, or you didn't have a lot of time to do the research. Those are limitations. And then you would finish that up with a summary, which you should do for all your chapters. Chapter 2, that's our literature review or lit review, and that is a review of important and related publications, things that are related to your topic area, and be sure that you pay attention to the outline in the assignment because it'll give you a lot more help and a lot more details on this. We have methodology, which is a discussion of how you're going to find out the stuff you need to find out to answer those research objectives and questions and ultimately your research problem. That's going to include who's in the study, how you're doing the study. Is it a qualitative study or a quantitative study? Are you going to be doing surveys? Are you going to be doing interviews? That sort of thing should all be included in chapter 3. In chapter 4, that's where you're going to simply report the findings of whatever data you gathered from your methods activities. You do not offer conclusions. You do not try to say what you think the data means in chapter 4. You're literally just giving the facts as you have learned them. Then in chapter 5, you will give your conclusions and recommendations, and the conclusions are the researcher's interpretations of the findings, like what do you think they mean, using your research questions or objectives to guide that discussion. And then offer recommendations both for further research, if some other researcher wanted to take up this topic and use your research to start from, or recommendations for the end users of these findings. So if you did something about graphic designers doing internships and what is best or not best, you could give advice based on your findings in that area. The next one I want to talk about is the case study paper. They're a little more simple. Chapter 1 is very similar to the 5-chapter research paper, with the introduction to the research problem, objectives, questions, and limitations. Chapter 2 is where it deviates a bit. Rather than a straight literature review, although it may contain some literature reviewing, it's a background on the topic area, as well as a description of the case or the cases that are being studied for the paper. Then the methods that are going to be used to get information from or about the case or cases. Chapter 4 is similar to the 5-chapter paper format. You're just going to report the data from research on the case or cases. And then chapter 5 again is the researcher's interpretations and conclusions of the findings along with recommendations. Because we do so much in web design and development and user experience, we also accept a usability study paper, traditionally called a report, but we've modified the US usability format to fit into our needs academically. So the first chapter is just introduction. We don't use chapter titles like chapter 1, and that is an introduction to the website or the application that's being studied and what its purpose is, and then a very brief summary of the study overall. Then there's an executive summary, and this is a more extensive summary. It describes where and when the study happened, the purpose of the testing, the number of participants, the length and probably amount of sessions, and then a brief overview of the results. The methodology should include session information, how many, how long, where, that kind of thing. Participant information, who were the participants, how were they gathered, how were they given the test, evaluation task as well, and scenarios are described in the methodology chapter. Then the result chapter gives the task completion success rate, task ratings, and then overall metrics of what was found. Recommendations are also given on change and justifications to whatever it is that's been studied, website or applications, or really anything that is studied for usability, as well as severity ratings are given. And then conclusions, which are an overall statement of the study findings and any key information that can be given in relation to the topic. The last format I want to talk about is unique to GIT, at least we think it is, and it's what we call the project research paper. And this is similar to the 5-chapter research paper. It still has an introduction, it still has a lit review, but after that it focuses on the development of a product instead of answering a research question or a research problem. It combines chapter 3 and 4, the process and result together, the description of how this product was developed and a discussion about the results of it. And then the final chapter is still a conclusions and recommendations chapter. Now let's talk about the research proposal. And as you might remember from the beginning of this lecture, we talked about it being a document that will help you get approval from your professor or your employer or funding sources that you want to get money from to do your research. It's basically the first 3 chapters of a 5-chapter research paper. You'll write chapter 1, the introduction, the introduction to the research problem, the study objectives, the limitations, all that stuff. Chapter 2, again, is just a literature review where you're going to discuss different areas of a research topic. Remember that in a lit review, you're not just reporting out individual articles. You're talking about topic areas that may bring in several different articles into each of those topic areas. It's not about the articles, it's about the things said in the articles. And then you'll do your chapter 3, the methodology, and that's where you outline your proposed methods, because when you're doing the proposal, you haven't actually done the research yet. You're informing whoever that this is what you plan on doing. The research proposal is very important. It does a couple of things for you. If you remember that it is your map, it will help you from getting off track and going out into the weeds. It will help you remember what your intentions are, what you planned on doing, and what it is that you want to find out. It also helps others know what you plan on doing and what you are doing as you do it. It's a little bit like a contract, although think of it as your map, and if you're traveling somewhere, sometimes you veer off the road a little bit. As long as you always come back to that road you planned on, you'll be okay. What we talked about in this presentation is the purpose of a research proposal, what the different types of research papers and paper structures are, and then what belongs in a research proposal itself.